Today is November the 6th, 1979. This is Helen Sollins with the Jewish Historical Society of Maryland, and we are conducting an oral history of the Jewish community. And today I am at the home of Leah and Aaron Gorelick on Russia Court. Mr. and Mrs. Gorelick have a good recollection of Europe and the early days of Baltimore. And I'd like to start by asking, did you come from the same shtetl, the same town?
We almost come from the same town. He used to live a little further up. We come from Slovenia, he comes from Shidrin.
This is in Russia. Would you know how
in Russia.
Would you know how they were spelled, those names of the shtetl? Do you know the name?
No, we
You
wouldn't
don't know how it's spelled.
We wouldn't know how it's spelled.
How did you meet your husband?
Oh, that's a long question. We were young children. He was 16, I was 13 when we met each other. And that was going on for 7 years. We were together, in one crowd. And then he went to serve the Czar.
Went into the Russian army.
That in Russia.
For 4 years.
For how long?
For 4 years.
4 years. What do you remember about a Jewish boy in the Russian army?
Huh?
What do you remember about life as a Jewish boy in the Russian army?
Yeah.
What do you remember?
Was Gedenkste.
What I can remember, I don't know, I finished the 4 years. I came home and her parents said you should get married.
But tell me, how old were you when you went into the Russian army?
Huh?
21.
I went when I was 21 years old.
When you went into the army?
I went to the
Do you
army.
remember anything about the time, the 4 years in the army?
Well, I remember when they had, to go on maneuvers,
Maneuvers.
So I saw him from far away. He was sitting on his pad, on Losses.
On his horse, yes.
You mean the Tsar was sitting on his horse?
But do you remember about life? Was it hard to be in the army? Was it a hard life to be a soldier, Russian soldier?
Well, it was a very hard life, from the Christian.
That's what I want to know about. As a Jew.
They used to always, then when it was the troubles, what was the man from Kiev, was mit uns gefragt, auf einem Bilbo, was hat gehakt dem Schickes.
That was in Kiev when
I forgot the name, it was the
I
man.
forgot the name.
They thought he killed the Christian boy,
A Jew
he
was
used the
accused
blood
of,
for the Nazi.
yeah, and he was accused of killing.
Yujinsky, I believe, was his name.
They cleared him then, they cleared him. Good lawyers they had there in Russia. And they cleared him and he went to Israel.
Yeah,
But how did it affect you in the army?
No, it was harder for him at that time to be in the army.
What years did you serve in the army?
What year was it, Harry? 1912? 1911 you started.
I started 1911 with the it was 1910, late in October, but it started to count from January 1911.
You studied in a yeshiva?
No.
No,
They
where did you
started
study?
In the Russia, that's
No,
what
I
they
didn't.
started.
I didn't
with,
went
so-
to yeshiva. I went to Cheder to 12 years. When I got 12, 13 years, I got my mission. I had to learn a trade.
Tell me about Jewish life. Was it all Jews living in your shtetl?
No, it was mixed.
Was
Jews on
I
Gentile.
had place where to live. It was the Asherlasi, Chertag Asherlasi. We couldn't go to live in Moscow. When I was in the army there, to serve the Tsar, I could live there, stay there. But when I finished, go ahead, you cannot live there.
Can't live
Another
there.
word to live like in Moscow, in Leningrad, in Kiev, you have to have special permissions to live there. You cannot just go and live there. In the small towns, it was
It
different.
was easier. What did the Jews do for a living?
Mostly, tailors, Schusters, shoemakers, all kind of trades, and then little stores,
What do you remember about your bar mitzvah? Were there many shuls where you lived?
In his time wasn't too
I went
many.
to school, yeah.
What do you remember about the bar mitzvah? Did you go on a Shabbos or during the week?
During the week.
So there was no big party afterwards. You just went.
Yeah.
That's it.
In our time, we had a lot of shoes. We had 7 shoes.
What do you remember? You don't remember how to spell that shtetl? You don't know
I
the.
What
think
is
I
it?
could spell it.
What is it?
We spelled Shlubin, Schlubin.
How do I spell the?
That's
No,
what
I
your daughter
didn't know.
just told me.
Yeah,
Nikki
because at that
Nadich
time,
is with us today too. She is the Gorelick's
When I
daughter.
became the age of 15, I went to a big city in Ukraine.
Oh, in the Ukraine, yes.
The city was named Yekaterinoslav. Today it's got another name. But by that time was the name Yekaterinoslav. And I was staying there a year in 1905. It was the pogroms there.
Why did you go there?
Huh?
he worked with somebody. He was by his trade hired there.
What did you do for a living?
He was a shoemaker.
And you went to this town where there was a
There
pogrom.
was a
Pogrom, but he
pogrom,
left this time.
and I was running over the train tracks, I had to go on my boss, but that time sent me to buy something in the store. And now they go, let them give me the word, Yudjidam, mislog the Eden.
That means to hit the Jews. To
Of
be
Yeah,
Lachum
they-
Geketzerik. I went back and I tell the boss, very, because I had Goyesche arbiter. So later minuten geht alleen. Omdat men de malle je kent, dat men hem omgekeerd, dat ze gaat terug, kan ik met de haar gaan. Ik ben terug, ze zet in de gooi, wat ze gewen aan Borwis, er heel erg een gehad kunnen hemd af zich. Is ook gedressed geworden als wie een prins, met haar guten futter, met haar, dus it was wintertime, almost. Mit a suit, mit Schild, mit Kaloschen.
He grabbed from somebody and he
So,
got dressed.
Het is een kind daar rübergetrokken, der Zug ein Zimmer, und wir geben 2 Päckchen im Backen. Als ich bin, $100 zu gucken, geht in der Lang 2 Päckchen, die man rausgetrieben hat, weil man nicht kommen, immer arbeiten.
Well, now, what year were you born, Mr. Gorelick? What
What?
year were you born? How old are you now? How old are you?
90.
You're 90, and you, Mrs. Gorelick?
3 years younger, 87.
Wonderful. You look
But
wonderful,
I had-
Tanahar.
Thank you.
But now, was
but
this
it-
your first indication of the pogroms? This first time you saw?
That first year was, I went home, I came home, I was.
He doesn't answer that, I think.
Well, how about you,
15.
Mrs. Gorelick?
Well, I was living with my parents. I was home, but he came back from his service in 1914. We got married, by the way, in 1914
You were married in Russia.
in Russia.
What
My
can you
parents-
tell me about your wedding? Tell me about your wedding.
It was a very nice wedding.
Was it home or was it?
Yeah, it was at home. The chuppah was on the outside. We had a very nice wedding, and then everything was fine.
Were you dressed
And-
as a bride? Did you have a bride's dress?
Oh,
Oh.
yeah.
But your life was a good life. You
Everybody-
were not poor people.
Well,
And 3 months passed.
in August the
July,
war
August,
began.
the war started.
The
World
First
War
World
started.
War.
But prior to the First World War, Mrs. Gorelick, did you see any pogrom where you lived?
No, we didn't.
Was there any anti-Semitism where you lived?
Oh, that was no question. We used to live with the generals very nice, with our neighbors. But otherwise, if you go out, we didn't have any troubles in our town.
You never ran into any anti-Semitism
No, I agree.
where you lived. And before you saw the pogrom, had you seen any anti-Semitism where you
No,
lived?
we didn't.
You didn't. Mrs. Gorelick, what did you do as a young girl? Did you work?
I was talented. I was very young, and I started a tailor shop.
You did tailoring?
Yes, I had my own tailor.
Was that unusual for a woman to do?
Yeah, it's like a dressmaker, but I did all
But
the clothes.
in Europe, did most of the women stay home or did most of the women work?
Well, most of they stayed home, they had...
That was not what you say, in Slovenien given
the means that there was not the...
unions,
no
like
factories.
we have here unions. They didn't have that unions by that time in the little towns.
But the women didn't have to stay home and cook and sew and clean only. They did also have businesses.
But this was not my mother as a woman.
Very
This was as a
little.
child. This is how old were you when you had?
I started very young.
Well,
when I
how
was-
old were you?
I was
She was
12.
12 years old when she started the shop, and she had girls.
She had people working for
A
her.
lot of
Oh, and you
girls
trained.
worked for
And who
me.
taught you how to sew so well? Who taught you? Who taught you? Who trained you?
I was just fortunately, I went to a dressmaker for a couple of seasons, and then I catched on everything. And that was very hard. It's not like here you go and you buy patterns, you have the books of the styles. There you have to just put the material on the table, and you have to cut yourself just
Make your own pattern.
everybody's to fit. And then the style you have to be your own designer. And I did that very well.
So how many girls did you have working for you when
Well,
you were
all
12?
depends. At that time was two, and then later was when I was older, and the shop got bigger, and they liked my work, so I had 6 or 7.
So how old were you when you had 6 girls working for you? How old were you when you had 6 girls working for you?
Time passes on, 14, 15,
Okay.
and I say that's what it is.
I wanted to know why you decided to come to America.
Because my parents were here.
When did they leave?
My brothers, see, I'm one of 8 children.
Would you like to put their names on tape? Would you like to tell me their names? Vicki, would you like to tell me your
Yes,
family
I think
names?
it's interesting. My grandparents, Alvashon, were
Yeah, I
Chaim
can-
and Sura Hankin. The oldest brother, who is no longer with
Wait a
us.
minute, Mika, what is she saying?
She's giving me the names of your family.
Well,
Is that all right?
yes, do you know all of them, Mika?
Well, Uncle Abraham Hankin Alvashon, who is no longer with us. In order, and then it's
Then I can
Leah.
next.
Leah is the oldest daughter, and then is Uncle Sam, Samuel Hankin.
Sal Hampton
Sal
comes.
Hankin is first,
Then the Tante Rojo.
then Rose Schifrin,
And Maris.
Morris
Maris
Hankin, who's
Hankin.
no longer with us,
And Nathan Hampton.
Nathan Hankin,
And Bertha
and
Garrett.
Bertha Garrella.